Hey, this is Todd Jensen, the VP of Marketing here at Best Company. Welcome to WOMM, the Word of Mouth Marketing Podcast, where we really focus on growth done right. And today I have a special guest, Traven Page, and he is the Director of Marketing. Let me let you introduce yourself, Traven. Say hi to the viewers and give them a little flavor about Traven and what you're doing these days.
Just a little flavor, not too much.
That's
not
right.
overwhelming flavor. So I'm Traven Page. I'm currently the Director of Marketing for Sophie Lark Publishing, a local author here in Utah. And I've been in the marketing scene for about 10 years, doing a variety of projects for different startups, and excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Todd.
It's so great to have you. And Traven and I have worked together, and I wanted to bring him on because he is really a go-to LinkedIn guru. He's somebody that I've worked with in the past. I've seen him transform social media marketing when we worked together, but really focusing in on LinkedIn. So I'm really excited to just glean from your brain, Traven, all kinds of useful, practical day-to-day tips that business owners, marketers, and growth managers can use to grow. So let's jump right in. Tell me a little bit, Traven, about your journey. What got you into marketing?
It was a wild journey at that, to be honest. It got me into marketing. So way back when I was in college, I was a communications major, but I had the opportunity to intern for marketing at actually doTERRA. I interned a few times in their marketing department and ran these big promotions. And that was like my first little taste of it. But most of my time was spent in event marketing and showing up, helping run concerts, helping in other big events here in the Salt Lake Valley, and really just moving forward into different opportunities that led me to social media, led me to email marketing. So I'm the guy, if you need something started, I put the hat on and I start it for you.
That had to be really fun for you, just the event world. I mean, I know you're a guitar player. I followed you. I've been following you on TikTok and seeing the awesome stuff that you're doing there. So is that what got you into the event? Was your love for music, or was it just one of those happenstances?
It was actually like doTERRA events and the energy that surrounded them early on. And then I transferred that into my pseudo music career that turned into volunteering for concerts and then eventually getting a job with them and doing some work for FitCon Utah. And it was more or less the energy that surrounded events. And then I realized that events are fun, but they are exhausting after a while.
I've been to enough trade shows to know that, but I can imagine events are even more so when you're so emotionally invested into an event. Who's going to show up? Is this going to go off right? It's kind of you got a one shot at things. So quite the adventure. So walk us through just some of your experiences. What's just something that's really memorable for you? Any memorable marketing experience that just stands out as this was something definitive in my career, for good or bad?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It was actually, if you're familiar with Udo, I worked for them for a while, and one of the most memorable experiences I had was they had a partnership with the Jazz, and we were allowed to do an activation there over by the Jazz Note on the square outside of Vivint Arena. And that was the most memorable, since it was kind of wild. I'm used to event spaces where it's like, oh, I'll go to the Salt Palace or go to this giant venue where I could do whatever I want because it's like a park or it's just a slab of cement that goes for hundreds of feet. But you really pare it down to just that little square. And I remember my boss at the time, shout out to Steve Cutler, who said, we're going to make it the biggest block party the Jazz has ever had. And that's what we did. We
That's
had,
awesome.
are you familiar with the professor, the basketball
Yes,
specialist?
absolutely. He's got an amazing handle, unbelievable
Yep.
dribbling skills, kind of a smaller guy, but
Yep.
just a freak of nature. Absolutely.
Yeah, we got him and a few other basketball influencers to play people one-on-one, and it was huge event. Just hundreds of people surrounding these basketball hoops over by the Jazz Note, watching the professor play, watching Chris Staples, Brianna Green, and White Iverson. So the four of them just playing people, and the social media reach was huge. It was viewed by millions and millions of people. People are still watching the footage to this day
That's
from that
amazing.
activation with Udo everywhere. So that was probably the most memorable one. And you always run into hiccups with events, and people like, I had to get basketball hoops in there, and the people showed up late, and then we didn't know if it was going to happen, and then the Jazz was super upset, rightfully so. I mean, when you're running a basketball game, it's like tight schedule.
Oh, I
If
can
you don't
imagine.
get it done, then you're not coming in.
And you're trying to get your hoops in there, and we're going to have the professor, but he doesn't have a basketball hoop. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
lot of how fun though. Wow, what a great experience doing that for the Utah Jazz and for Udo.
Mhm.
So going from events to now you're this LinkedIn guru. Connect the dots there for me. How do you get from one to the other, Traven?
Yeah, so I was on the social media team for Purple for a few years, for about 4 years. And it really drove my love for social media. And that more or less transitioned to different things over time. I started as an online reputation manager, and then a community manager, and then project managing and running actually LinkedIn and Twitter at the same time. And I was so dumbfounded by the amount of reach you could get on LinkedIn just by a post, by a company post. You post it, all the employees like it, and just blasts everywhere and shows up in front of everybody. And we were trying to do the same thing on YouTube, which costs an absorbent amount of money, like just a massive amount of money to get it in front of as many eyes, pound for pound. Not that Purple couldn't do it, and they had plenty of Harmon's video or Harmon Brothers videos and
Oh, I remember
different
their commercials.
entities.
That's right.
Yes, just blew everything up, and they even had the Purple Boys. But I was looking at these small, how do you call them? Wells of opportunity. I jumped into that scene where I would see these opportunities on LinkedIn, and then I actually went on to pursue my own career as a social media manager, freelancing, and I continued with LinkedIn, and I continued just pushing and pushing, and I started to see clients show up. Like, people message me and like, hey, would you run my LinkedIn? Hey, can you run my Twitter, run my Instagram, Facebook? And I'm like, it's this weird opportunity where, you know, imagine you post on LinkedIn and you continue to post on LinkedIn to get clients, and you put that same amount of energy in Instagram. It's kind of like comparing crops that grow at different times. Like, LinkedIn is just going to
Mhm.
grow faster, and it's going to have a more direct ROI than building your audience from 0 to 5,000 on Instagram. And you're like, okay, I have 5,000 followers on Instagram, but now I have to sell them on a product, as opposed to LinkedIn, where you can sell your services for a much higher level. And then you're starting to get better clients. You're starting to get better opportunities than doing your average Instagram influencer following.
Is it just the nature of the two audiences, or the difference, between a LinkedIn audience that you're really focused more on the decision makers, and I mean, is there, what would you attribute that difference to?
Absolutely, the decision makers. And I also want to put a caveat where Instagram influence is incredible. I'm saying more if you're in the marketing space, if you're in the business space, even if you're a CPA or an accountant talking about how do you run your LLC, how do you run your taxes for your LLC, and then boiling it down, people would rather see that on LinkedIn because it's, I'm willing to put that in front of the decision makers. I'm willing to put that in front of the people that are actually paying higher amounts for your services than trying to blow that up on Instagram.
I love that. And that really gets us into the heart of our conversation here, Traven. So, why should a business owner, a marketer, somebody that's doing the marketing for a business, why should
Mhm.
they actually turn some focus onto LinkedIn? Help us understand the case for LinkedIn.
Absolutely. There are a couple of points I'm going to boil it down to, pretty much 3 points. The first one being you always have to be ready. The climate's changing all the time. And the second point is your reputation. You always want to manage your reputation. And the third point is to have influence over industry. So I'm gonna walk through the three of them. The
That'd be
first
great.
one actually applies to always be ready, kind of make sure you know what's going on in the climate. Have you ever read the book Who Moved My Cheese by
Oh,
Spencer
absolutely.
Johnson?
That's right. Yep. Things shift in front of you and you got to be able to adapt, right?
Yeah, people are forgetting. People are forgetting because we've had these amazing jobs for so many years, and the cheese has always been there. And to give your listeners kind of a basic rundown, it's four entities inside of a maze, two mice, two people in the book. And the two mice show up every day at the same time. They always have their shoes tied, they're always ready to go. And then the two people show up and they're like, well, I'm not going to do anything. The cheese is already here. The reward is here. Why would I do anything? And then all of a sudden the cheese is gone. And the mice take off into the maze and they go look for the cheese. And the two people think, oh, I'm just going to sit here and the cheese will come back. But that's not the case. The cheese never comes back. So there are a lot of people these days, and I don't want to keep this to just marketers or executives or anybody, it's everybody. If you're sitting at your job right now, just as a W 2 employee, you're probably going to lose it one day for one reason or another.
Something's
It's
going to shift, right? The plates are going to
something,
move underneath your feet.
yep, something's always going to happen. And that doesn't mean you're fired, it doesn't mean you're laid off, but you might get a new boss that you don't like. You might get just pulled in the office one day and your responsibilities change. And like, I don't want to do that job. They're like, well, I'm sorry, but that's what we need you to do. So you need to decide if you want to be here or not. And it's this level of complexity that you need to be prepared for. And LinkedIn prepares you for that because you're amplifying your expertise and your audience to understand that it's your expertise. Moving straight into our second point is your reputation. Where if you've ever read the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, he talks about you need to protect your reputation with your life. And it is so bizarre to me that not all executives are posting on LinkedIn. And the number one reason is always, I don't have the time. I don't have the time to sit down and write a post. I don't have the time to make it perfect like I want it to. And then I rebuttal with, do you have the time to protect your reputation? Because if you're not amplifying your reputation and your voice, somebody else is doing it for you.
So let me make sure I understand. You're saying that Traven Page LLC, like you've got to treat yourself like its own entity. And you say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is me, this is my brand, this is my reputation. I'm going to take charge of that. And LinkedIn is a great place to do that. Am
Yes,
I getting close there?
absolutely. Everybody calls it personal branding. I
Mm-hmm.
actually avoid the word personal branding because I
What
feel
would
it's
you
getting
call it? What would you call it, Traven?
reputation management.
I
I
love
am
that.
managing my reputation.
I love that. That's actually a big focus at Best Company is company's reputation, but there's a big push right now to say, hey, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a marketer, it's time to own your own reputation and to build that online. I think that's fantastic. Let's take a dive into that third point there. Help me understand a little bit why that is so important. That final piece.
Yeah, it's really amplifying your expertise in the industry. It's talking about the subject. So if we were to take a step back and to look at the broad scheme of things, everybody's having conversations about subjects. And you'll find that people that have the most success are passionate about their industry and passionate about their subject. And the reason I say that is because you can smell it. When you see a post that's just generic, that nobody cares about, that you know it's kind of lip service, and I'm going to use the cookie war example for a minute. The reason I didn't publish anything about the cookie war is because I don't care about that industry and I don't want a reputation being tied to whatever is happening between Crumble and Dirty Dough. I just
Help our
don't.
viewers understand, and just in case there's a viewer out there that makes better dietary choices than I do, and they're not they're not up to speed on the cookie wars. Help them understand just a little bit what's going on there.
Yeah, it was essentially Crumble, the larger cookie entity, being upset with other cookie companies for using different aspects of their likeness and branding and their business model. And it created this huge conversation on LinkedIn where they're deciding, like, is it okay for these other companies to provide delivery cookies? Should Crumble be the only delivery cookie people? Does the pink box look enough like the teal box with the cookie logos on top for Crumble to be justified in suing these really small companies? And it was essentially like the giant mega company trying to squash the underdogs. And it was interesting, but I looked at it, I'm like, my reputation isn't going to be a post about this. I'm going to stick to my industrial expertise, that is social media, reputation, and strategy. Those are the three things I always talk about.
So you're saying you're not chasing the shiny object of
Yes.
what's in the news right now or what's going on in the marketing world or in the cookie world. You're saying, no,
Mhm.
I'm Traven Page LLC, and this is my reputation, and this is my area of focus, so I'm going to stick with that.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
love that focus and on exactly what you're trying to do. Any tips you could give for somebody out there that's trying to say, well, how to identify what should my personal reputation be on LinkedIn? Walk us through a little bit
Mhm.
how you came to what yours is.
Yeah, so I was, dare I call it, a practical approach. um, I took a notebook and I wrote down 15 things I was interested in when it came to like just business in general or myself or really any topic. I wrote them down and then I started crossing them out until I had three. And I always coach people whenever they talk to me about posting on LinkedIn. I always coach them, just pick 3 to 5 things you want to talk about. I'm almost positive everybody out there has 3 to 5 things they're pretty passionate about that they can talk about, and they're somewhat of an expert in that field. They don't have to be like the absolute, I'm the Elon Musk of electric cars. They don't have to be that. They
Right.
can be like, I have successfully helped 1,000 clients with their taxes. And these are the things they bring to me. And this is how you can make your taxes better during tax season. Or I'm a marketer for YouTube. These are 3 things that I always talk about when it comes to building an audience on YouTube.
So really recognize what you're really good at, identify what you're really passionate about, put those two together, and then that's what you need to stick to and focus on so that it's not just flavor of the month, flavor of the week type of stuff, but you're really honing in. This is what I want to be known for. I I
Absolutely.
I love that. Help our viewers understand just a little bit, Traven, the difference between your personal profile on LinkedIn and the business page. Can you walk us through just a few of the fundamentals there, and then I'd like to kind of spend a few minutes on each one.
Absolutely. So both of them have their inherent value, but you have to understand what's resonating with the audience when it comes to their value. One thing to pay attention to is that you, as a personal profile, will generally get 3 times the amount of reach that a business profile will. People want to hear from people. I don't want to see some nameless healthcare organization preaching to me about how they're going to change the world, because I know they're an organization that is hiding behind a brand. That's not always the case, but that is generally the case when it comes to some of the businesses posting on LinkedIn. But me as a person, they tie a face to it, they tie an emotion to it, and they're tying expertise. So when they identify with the person and they see that you work at X place or you provide X service, they're going to have a better and more emotional impact on what they're trying to accomplish when it comes to problem solving. So when I look at, let's give Sprout Social, for example, they're a social media kind of, they're a planner and they do a smart inbox and they have a lot of great functions. But when it comes to some of their content, they provide solutions. They sit there, here's a PDF on how to like make your brand better. What are you struggling with? And you look at that and you look at the amount of engagement, you're like, oh, this isn't getting nearly as much reach as it should, even though it's providing a great amount of value. Now, flip that and you look at the CEO of Sprout Social, and he's just blowing up with advice just because he's a person and he's willing to put himself out there and willing to have an emotional impact on his audience rather than hiding behind a brand.
I love that. So help us understand how that principle, and just to restate, if I'm hearing you correctly, Traven, people want to talk on LinkedIn, especially. People want to hear from people more than they want to hear from brands, right?
Yes.
So if I manage the social media account at XYZ company, what do I do? Because I'm over the business account, but I understand that reality that you just described. How do I incorporate that, the people part of it, into my social strategy? How do I actually accomplish that?
That is a great question. And the first thing I will say, I empathize with whoever's listening to this, and that is their job. Like, it is no easy feat to convince people to take time out of their day to make a LinkedIn post. um,
So are you saying then I should divert my attention off of the brand page and start that difficult journey of getting individuals to start posting? Am I hearing you right?
if I were to divert energy, I would put 30% toward the brand and 70% toward people. I think
Okay.
the brand still has benchmarks because when you click on a brand page and you see they haven't posted in 8 months, you're like, what's happening? Is this even still a thing?
So you still need a healthy pulse going on
Yes.
the actual business page, right? But you're saying 70% of your LinkedIn efforts are going towards individuals. What do you do? Put people in a
Yes.
room and train them how to use LinkedIn? Do you like what's
Yes.
your approach? And I've actually seen you do some cool things here. So walk our viewers through how you spend that other 70% of your time.
So the way that I did it was I sat down, I looked at directors, VPs, and executives, and I looked at their experience, I looked at their past, and then I build more or less a plan for them where I look at it and I send them a message and say, hey, you have great experience. I'm putting together a LinkedIn thought group inside the company to help amplify our brand and to help gain reach on the platform. I'm going to take 30 minutes of your time and train you how to use the platform. And I will take time out of my day to help you write some of these posts and give you ideas. And then if it really came down to it and you have a CEO who says, no, I'm just not going to have the time to do it, you have to have a real conversation with them to say, your reputation is at risk if you're not going to take the reins on this one. And two, we should consider hiring a ghostwriter. If you're not going to be able to put the time forward, give me 5 topics. I'll have a ghostwriter write it. We'll send it to you. We can schedule it out, and then everything will be placed for you. And then have somebody jump in and manage some of the comments
This
if
is
need
great.
be.
This is great. So you work with that executive, and it sounds like, from what you said, you've kind of handpicked people that already have a reach on LinkedIn, right? That have got 5, 6, 7,000 followers already, and you work with them as a consultant almost. You represent the
Mm-hmm.
marketing department, but in this case, you're saying I'm your personal consultant here, and I'm going to make sure this gets done. So let's find out the actual things that you're interested in, what reputation you want to be known on LinkedIn, and then I will create either through ghostwriters or I'll create directly some of these posts and hand you this post on a platter. That's
Yes.
actually amazing. So the CEO in this case doesn't have to start from scratch, come up with some profound thing, and then share that on their social media.
Yeah.
How interesting. Any other color you would add to that as far like how do you actually get someone to do that?
So the way that people call this cheating, I call it being resourceful. But the way I actually get people to do it is I'm just like, give me one post. Like, I just want the one post. They give me that post. I hop on the Slack channels. I walk to people's offices. I go around the company and say, we are going to blow this up to the moon. Everybody's going to see this post everybody in our company is going to see this right now. I don't care if you've already seen it. I was knocking on doors like, I've already seen it. I'm like, did you like and comment? Get in there and like and comment right now. So it's a little aggressive of approach, but you have to show tangible results of what would happen if they continued to post, if they continue to grow it. It's the best way I can describe it is, if I were to convince you to plant an apple tree, why would you do it if you've never tasted an apple? And then I give you an apple, and then you're like, wow, this is amazing. We should probably plant one of these trees.
So what if someone says, yeah, Traven, that's great, but okay, we're building up these executives' personal profiles and building out, like, they now look like these sages in the industry. But what about our brand over here? How do you answer that concern? Like, isn't all this love just going to build up these individuals and make them more attractive? But what about the brand itself? Like, is there enough crossover to where this is actually going to benefit the brand? Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Essentially, you have to find a pivot point, and that's a great question. I will caveat a lot of this information are beginning stages. These are the starting points. And then as you build into it and as you start ramping up, it's more of, how do I find these opportunities for them to post inside the company? So they've built their audience given their industrial expertise, and then you step in and say, oh, we have a sign coming up on a building. Now they post. Now they put the brand in front of it. Or we have a jazz event. Now they're showing up at the jazz event. Now people are more excited. They're seeing the brand more and more. They have to see these touch points. They have to see where you're working and what you're doing. So let's say I build this massive following for one executive, and the executive is like, well, thanks for doing that. Bye. You still have probably 5 or 6 people inside of the company, or if you're a small startup, you still have more people, or even your own brand that you're promoting, that you're posting about, where it says, I am director of marketing at Sophie Lark. And now they're seeing it more and more and more, because it's a nice thing where it has your name, and then right underneath it, it says what you do, which if you don't have it set up that way, I would recommend it for most people. There are outliers. Mine definitely isn't constructed that way, but it's a huge opportunity to put your brand currently working at NERSA, currently working at Udo, currently working at Purple. It's a huge opportunity to get in front of people, because if you go back to my previous comment, your personal page is going to get 3 times the reach. So if you think my 3 times the reach isn't bringing eyes back to the brand, then there's a problem.
I love this. So you've made some really good points here that I just want to underscore. One is, people are going to listen to people more than they listen to brands, especially true on LinkedIn. All right, so let's build a network of influential people in our org. Let's teach them how to use LinkedIn. And if we need to, let's create these posts on a platter to get them starting. We'll prime the pump there so that they're now building out their own personal reputation. And then are there times, it sounds like there's times then also where there's company announcements and there's things that are just straight up things we want to get, we want to get our message out. So now not only do we have our LinkedIn business page, but now we've got these healthy personal accounts. We've got 5 or 6 people that collectively have a huge reach, and we actually can leverage them to get this message out. So we've just amplified exponentially our LinkedIn reach. So whether or not that all cross-pollinates and comes over and all of those followers now start following our brand, like, we'll get some of that. But when we need to get the word out, we now have a network of internal influencers that are able to spread that message. I just think that that's genius. Anything that you would add to that scaffolding to give it a little bit more meat. And I totally mixed metaphors there. I went scaffolding and meat. So bones and meat is probably a little bit more on target there.
That would be a weird building.
Yes, it would.
So
any other color that you would add to that, Traven?
Yeah, there are, The only color that pops to mind are kind of pet peeves on LinkedIn.
Let's hear it.
Everybody sees these pet peeves, and there are two of them for me. One, you haven't heard from the person in months, and they post a press release about their company without anything else. And I'm like,
Ah,
you don't
it,
have a lot of credibility with me, and you want me to get excited about your press release when I
mm,
know nothing about you?
you haven't provided any insight, any thoughts. You haven't participated in this conversation. And then the first time you chime in, it's an infomercial about you or
Yep,
about your company. Okay. So
yep.
you gotta think ahead. You gotta get out there and feed, provide, add value, and then you trickle in something about yourself. I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yes. And then the second one is very much in the same vein, but I've seen it happen way too many times where I'm like, please just stop doing this. Where somebody reposts a job listing for their company, come work for us. I'm like, I don't know anything about you. I don't even know anything about your company. I don't even know why you work for your company. Why would I come out of nowhere? And this is why you look at those posts, they don't get engagement, they don't get comments. I
That
even
is
go out of my way to comment on some of them, and they still don't get them.
that is interesting because that's exactly what you'll see. You'll see crickets for a long time, and all of a sudden, someone wants to post for a job or something like that. And you're saying that you've got to really you've got to get in there, have the conversation, engage, and then when there's times to trickle those other things in, then you can do that. But don't go silent, and then all of a sudden hope everyone's going to jump in and participate, especially on a job post. Any other
Yep.
pet peeves that stand out? Those are some good ones.
Oh, the other one I would only say is trolling and confrontation. I look at a situation and I say, this is terrible. But when it comes to LinkedIn posts, I don't have that connection with somebody to say, this is awful. Like the biggest pet peeve that I have is when somebody is so contrarian that they end up being a troll on LinkedIn. And I've actually seen brands do this, which is probably the most off-putting thing I've ever seen, was a brand jump in and be like, our competitors suck. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but it was almost that post like, our competitors suck and they're lying to you, and these are the reasons they're lying to you. And I'm like, I see what you're trying to do. And then in the comment section, they were just hateful to everybody who said that they were wrong and just so aggressive and mean. So when it comes down to it and you're looking at you're looking at a post and like, that's not true, the best way that I have to handle that is ask a question. Ask a question and say, from my results, I have seen blank. And from this article, I have seen blank. But you're saying the opposite. What leads you to believe this? And then that creates a
Rather than call
conversation.
somebody out or bring the hammer down, you're saying come in and take this approach that's informed and inquisitive.
Yeah. Be inquisitive. Like if you're not um, inquisitive, then people get immediately defensive when you're calling them out for being wrong. I mean, that's like one of the first chapters of how to win friends and influence people is like, don't get in there and criticize. You're not going to make any friends here. You're just going to look kind of like a loser, and
Same
it's going to be
principles that
sad.
apply. Same principles that apply face to face. They apply on LinkedIn. That who would have thought? Can I just do a little bullet round of just a couple of questions that I get? And I just want to get just kind of your first take on some of these. And I didn't prep you for this or anything, but just some of the questions I hear all the time. So,
Okay.
how often should I post? That's the thing I hear the most.
Post consistently as much as you can. If it's one time a week, post one time a week. I have seen better results if you're posting 5 times Monday through Friday. And then the most incredible results, which require a lot of time and attention that most people don't have, honestly, I don't even have it, is twice a day, Monday through Friday, and then once on the weekends. So it's more like if you're willing to put that much time in, great, amazing. but it's the consistency that matters. If you're the one that shows up every day on Monday, everybody knows you're the one that shows up every day on Monday. But if you're just like, oh, I'll post on Monday and then next week, Thursday, and then maybe next month, it's all about the consistency or the cadence of when you're able to post.
I love it. When should I post in the day? What time should I post?
In the morning. I always say between 7 and 9 a.m., wherever you're at.
Excellent. What kind of content should I post? Should I be sharing articles? Should I be writing my own little haiku? What should I be creating, adding, engaging with?
You should be writing your own content. Don't share links. LinkedIn will not show it if you share a link.
So don't share a link, create your own. Engaging on content that already exists out there. Any tips that you would throw in as far as engaging on other people's posts?
Yes. So as you're scrolling, like 15 posts and then comment on 10 of them.
So you're saying it's kind of a daily habit. Get in there, what did you say? Like 15 and comment on how many?
On 10 of the ones you liked.
Great.
Tell them why you like it.
Tell us a little bit about that. A comment. Hey, great post. Thumbs up. Like what kind of an engagement should I add? And this might be just, obvious, but I see great post, exactly. I see those kind of comments all the time. Is that enough?
If you're reaching for bare minimum, that is like the bottom of bare minimum. If you want to make a meaningful impact on somebody's post and on your own reputation, you would need to provide a little bit more, kind of like what I said before, where it's like, why did you like it? Like, what brought you to like this post? There's a creator named Tony Albrecht. I hope that's how you pronounce his last name. I'm sorry for all my LinkedIn people. But he did a post the other day where he was talking about personal branding. And I commented on it and gave my piece about online reputation management, where I kind of put that snidge to it where it's a little scarier, because that helps me create more content for myself to manage my reputation. So it turned from personal branding of his conversation, and I said, I like this, and this is why I like it.
That's fantastic. If you were, and you've kind of weaved this through many of your answers, but as succinctly as you can, why should someone spend their time and energy on LinkedIn? If you had just a quick, we're passing in the hall and someone says, why LinkedIn? And you got to give me something that's going to be persuasive there. Why would you say?
I would say, if you want to ensure a future in your profession, you should probably be posting on LinkedIn.
Ooh, that's bold. So if you want to ensure a future in your profession, you should be engaging on LinkedIn. I love that. Let's say somebody, this has been a great conversation, by the way, and we took a lot longer because you're just a fountain of wisdom on LinkedIn here. If you were to offer one final parting word, one bit of advice for a business owner, for a marketer, for somebody they're saying, okay, great, LinkedIn, I'm on board. If they were to do only one thing, what would it be?
If I were to tell them one thing, it would be, your content isn't cringy and it's going to help somebody.
That's very nice. If you were going to get them to stop doing one thing on LinkedIn, this goes back to your pet peeves. If you were going to get them to stop doing one thing, what would it be?
Stop sharing links.
Excellent. I love it. Traven, you're the best. It's so great to talk to you. It's so great to pick your brain, somebody that's been in the trenches on LinkedIn. I've seen what you've been able to do on LinkedIn, not only for yourself, but for others, and how you've helped brands grow through this platform. It's such a unique opportunity to I mean, how many people are on LinkedIn these days? I thought I read something like 750 million or something like that. I mean, it's just an astronomical number.
Yeah, I think the last number I saw was 830 million.
830 million. How many of
Yes.
those are actually posting and actually creating content on LinkedIn?
The last official number I saw was 1%. Unofficial is probably 4 or
Wow.
5% of people.
Wow. So you talk about opportunity there. You've got 830 million decision makers there, and you have 1 to 4, 5% of people that are actually creating and adding new content. That means there's a lot of blue ocean there. That's been great.
Yes.
Traven, you're awesome. Thank you so much for taking time. Thanks for sharing with our audience what you've learned in the trenches. So love talking to you and hope to have you back here on the WOMM, the Word of Mouth Marketing Podcast. Thanks, Traven.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks everybody for watching and listening to the Word of Mouth Marketing Podcast. I'm Todd Jensen. And here at Best Company, we try to deliver specific ways that you can grow and where you can actually market and do it right. And thank you.